All right, these are relatively personal to me, and they're based entirely on my worldview. And the way that I came up with them is I took a class at Brown, which I also highly recommend, called the Shaping of Worldviews, which is a university course. And the end project was write a 30-page paper about your worldviews. So I did that, and then I summarized it into 18 bullets, which became my principles. So they are in relatively quick succession. I believe that the things that will bring me the most happiness and satisfaction in life are: 1, make myself the best person that I can and have kids who are greater than me. 2, maximize the love in my life, whether it be through my partner, friends, family, etc. And 3, create as much value as possible in the world and elevate the collective quality of life, most likely by founding tech companies initially, but also through mentoring in general. I have a lot more thoughts about the idea of creating value, but I could dive into that deeper later on. I believe unwaveringly that I can accomplish anything, even things that people consider physically impossible, if I have enough time. I believe that I have personal agency and the power to change the world around me and the situations around me. I'm one of the happiest people I've met. Education and self-improvement are a virtue. Personal growth is a virtue. Any activity that makes me grow helps all the other things that I want to do. Using time unproductively is an anti-virtue. I can take on groups and win. The world is a big and diverse place, but due to technology, it's actually small. This is my favorite one. There is a way around every obstacle. All systems, for example, are governed by people, and as a result, there is a way of getting around any obstacle within a human-run system by going to the person at the top of the governance structure and getting a special exception. By the way, the term special exception is a great term. Perfect example is the thing I talked about before with the meal plan. I just kept escalating until I got a yes. Same thing for the card. I just kept escalating until I got a yes. Economics is not a zero-sum game. You can create value in the world. Love is one of the most important things in life by far. Decision-making necessitates information. The more perfect one's information, the better your decision-making. Going outside one's comfort zone is a virtue and leads to growth. You cannot fail unless you quit, and your success in life can often be summed up by the number of difficult conversations you have. If you smile at people, they'll usually smile back at you. People by default are good and want to help, and this is a relatively new one that I added. Again, I update this consistently when I notice things that satisfy me or things that seem cool. If in a small unit of time I can significantly improve someone else's life, do it. This usually happens with the form of helping other people adopt habits, keeping them accountable, or introducing them to new resources or information. Yep.
Is your list of classes that you read out before, is that like somewhere public?
I'll post it in the group. Yes.
Very good. I'm wondering what you think about love and friendship.
Oof. What do you think about love and friendship? Any more specific question around it or general?
Just an open-ended question.
Open-ended question. Okay. So I think like most people, my thoughts about love comes from my nuclear family. So I won the lottery when it comes to my family. I have great parents. I have 4 younger siblings who I love more than anything else in the world and I'm so proud of. I could observe growing up that the thing that brought the most satisfaction to my parents is their kids. I think that that's actually true of most people. And so that's why that is that number one goal for me. I think that love is a very special thing because it's kind of like fire. It's one of the only things in the world where the more you give of it, the more you have to give. So if you have a candle and you light another candle, it continues, but the same thing applies to love. If you share love with other people, it'll spread. And it, at least for me, does not take away energy for me to share love with other people. When you think about happiness in general in life, and what brings the most happiness and joy, I personally experience that experiencing deep love with other people is what gives me the most joy. And so I want to maximize the amount of love that I have in my life, both over the short term and the long term. Another interesting mental model I have around this is that relationships are exponential in the sense that your most close relationships are worth hundreds of relationships that are less close. And so I value my relationship with my parents and my family the most because they give me the most joy, and then right outside of that circle are the friends that are closest to me, and outside that circle is like friends who are normal friends and then acquaintances and general people. But that one person that is very close to you is exponentially causes more happiness in your life than the person one step out. So try to bring as many people into your life. yeah, so love is just great. And friendship is the same.
So in order to escalate all these situations, you have to have a really good question asking mind. How did you develop that skill?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think you already have it. Say the question again.
Like how do you learn? So you said like they're good questions, right? How do you know what the good
Yes.
question is?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you need to break this into two categories. The first one is what are the questions to ask in general. The second one is what is the questions to ask when you're cross-examining someone, basically. What questions to ask in general? The way to learn how to ask questions in general is to expose yourself to a lot of information. Read a lot of books. And take classes and have conversations with people. What happens is, Tim Urban also talks about this, your knowledge comes with the trunk of a tree. You build the trunk first. And if you are exposed to a leaf but you don't have a trunk or a branch to put it on, it won't actually count. So you want to build kind of a mental model of the world, and then once you have that in place, the more information gets thrown in it, the more sticks and it builds out. And as that happens, you'll come up with more and more questions about life in general. So expose yourself to a lot of information, and then once you get that information, be conscious, synthesize it, and build models, and then it'll be easier to pick up more information as you go along. So that's with regards to general questions. With regards to cross-examination questions, how do you know what to ask? One, again, is read books about the topic. So how to make friends and influence people is a great one. By the way, it shouldn't not be called how to make friends and influence people. It should be called how to make friends and put yourself in other people's shoes. The second one that's really great is Never Split the Difference, which is a negotiation book by the guy who used to run the hostile negotiation section of the FBI. Yes, exactly. So he has a bunch of really good tactics and questions about that. Never Split the Difference. And then if you start there, and then you start actively doing it, you'll come up with phrases that over time help you a ton. So, and once you learn the phrase once, it's there. It's never going away. Perfect example. I sneak into a lot of places that I should not be in. And so every time I use another excuse. But one of the excuses that has worked the best is I'll be walking in let's say I'm in Harry Potter, the 3rd floor level where the 3-headed dog is, and Filch comes and sees me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Where's the bathroom?" And they'll direct you to the bathroom and no problem, right? So that's something that I developed over time through iterating. And so I think actually it's like evolution. I go and just do a lot of things and put myself outside my comfort zone very, very often, and I just try things. And some of those fail, and some of those succeed. And then I'm like, okay, I have a practical principle of ask where the bathroom is, and now I can put some variation on that. So I'll try 3 different variations and it'll work. So for example, I read you guys my life principles. I also have practical principles. Some of them are if I'm leaving my dorm and I have a choice between taking my backpack and not taking my backpack, and I don't know what to do, always take the backpack. Because usually I regret not having my backpack more than I regret having my backpack. Same thing for my longboard. Always take your longboard unless there's a good reason not to. A new one that I developed today is when flying from San Francisco to Providence, always go through Boston. Do not have a connecting flight that then ends up at Providence, because you more than double your chances of missing the event that you're supposed to go to if there's a connecting flight. You're better off going directly to Boston and then taking an Uber or taking the train, because the train and the Uber will not fail. So had an experience in my life and then immediately learned from it and built a principle that I'm going to apply in the future. And now I save myself time. I'm not going to make that mistake again, but I also don't need to think about it again. Yeah.
So when you talk about fighting through the no,
Yeah.
I think we all deal with those phone calls and stuff that we
Yeah.
want to speak to the supervisor. I've kind of come to a philosophy in my life where it's just not worth the agita to me. It hurts me more than it helps me to fight for the $25 or whatever, and then I start paying myself for the hours that I'm living in angst,
Right.
which is the saddest, most uncomfortable time for me. I can't imagine how you can decide to embrace that and just say, I want to win this now for the sake of winning, no matter how much it's eating me alive.
Mm-hmm.
How can you rectify your love of community and fellow man and stuff if you're just busting through everybody's rules and laws and making exceptions for just yourself? And I just can't rectify that kind of mentality.
So this is a phenomenal question, and I thought you were going to ask one thing and then you answered it within the question, so I get the question that you're asking now. It's a really good question. So the first one is really, you do have to flip your mind. And you have to say, this is a game, and my objective is to get to the point that I want to get to. And so that helps you not feel bad about having confrontations with people, and you shouldn't feel bad about having confrontations with people. Like, having difficult conversations is totally fine. Now, obviously, you don't insult people, you don't belittle people, etc. So the other important thing, and the other thing here is, my strategies do not necessarily apply to everybody else. The trick is, put yourself in difficult situations and find how to solve them for yourself. I happen to be good at talking to people, so that's the thing that I focus on. My brother Tyler is amazing at software engineering. So, for example, he ran the API chapter at Stanford, and he needed to recruit people. So what he did is he built a scraper that found all the people with Jewish names in all the Facebook groups at Stanford, went to the directory automatically and found their emails and dorm numbers, automatically printed out invites to them and invited them all to events, and then built an auto reminder. And then did some more things with people. If I had to do that task, I would do it all manually by talking to people. So find the things that work for you. It might not be doing it this way. I just enjoy talking to people. The second one was rectifying your love for your fellow man. Everything that I do is always positive, like in a positive energy, right? If I go on the phone with a customer service person of United, I'm like, hi, what's your name? Linda. Linda, nice to meet you. Said with a smile, always. I never get angry at the person. In fact, I always put myself in their shoes. So I'll be like, I know that this is a very frustrating situation. I imagine you get calls like this all the time, and I know that this is not your fault. So let's find a way of solving this together. So the other really important thing that works for me always is, when you are across the table from somebody else, always flip the table so that you're now both observing a problem and solving it together. Which is the same thing that, if you noticed, I did with the detective as well. He was like, I can't show it to you. Great, can you go and see it? And now we're literally on the same side of the table looking at the monitor. Now, again, there is always the friction of having that negative, you're head to head with somebody else.
Diversity.
Sorry?
You call it the diversity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so the trick is, you have to power through it until you get used to it, in the same way that when you're lifting weights, it'll be really difficult in the first several weeks. And then you get used to it, and then you'll start to love it, because you start to enjoy the load. Yes?
So you obviously have a lot of well-formed opinions about many things. You spend a lot of time thinking about them. What are some things that you're not sure about yet, or that the jury's still out?
A ton of things. So like we talked about happiness earlier. Actually, literally everything. So this is one of the most important principles for that table of values. Things iterate all the time. All the time. So I mentioned like my top 3 goals in life earlier. They used to be completely different. When I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be Prime Minister of Israel, a billionaire, and a pop star. And I decided that the reason why I admired billionaires was not actually because they had a lot of money in their bank account, it was because they created a lot of value in the world. So I iterated on that thing. I used to think that it was right to fly directly to Providence, and I changed my mind because I got new data. So I'm always open-minded about changing, and I do it on a regular basis. It's not even an interval where I do it every month or every week. Like the second I get new data, I try to update. There's way too many things to talk about that I don't have I don't have a decisive opinion about everything. I have the most up-to-date opinion that I can. So relating it back to physics, like you have like force equals ma, and then Einstein was like, actually, nah, man, like E equals mc squared under certain situations. And so you can have a law that you've built for yourself, but you always have to have an open mind that the law could be wrong. How are we doing on time?
3 minutes left.
3 minutes left. Aaron.
So you once said, hey man, you should find the emerging technologies that are going to be huge in 20, 30, 50 years,
Yeah.
and position yourself now strategically so that you can be an active player when those things
Right.
actually emerge. At this current moment, January 26, 2018, what do you think are those technologies that are going to change the world 20, 30, 50 years?
All right, this is a great question. So, backtracking a little bit, and then I will answer the exact question. Right, I built all these things in college, and one of the reasons why I did that was because I wanted to learn and acquire data on all these different industries. So I learned how to work with biotech, how to do 3D printing, how to like build a payments company, etc. I didn't know what I would like build solar cells. Didn't know what I wanted to work on. I had built this tool that helped me read. And I started reading papers about the application of deep learning to text-to-speech that would make it so that you could start doing text-to-speech with the quality of human speech. And this research was able to do it like almost human quality speech But it took it an hour of processing to get a second worth of speech done. And I was like, well, I can see what's going to happen here. So I'm going to build a perfect vessel that's ready to catch this technology once it's ready. That's what we did. Like 5 months later, it took it like 15 minutes instead of like an hour, and then it took like less and less and less, and then it became instantaneous. Actually, the original paper that I read is still not instantaneous, but there's other things that are getting there, and every like month there'll be a new paper. So predict the technology, build something for it. What I was looking for, I had a thesis for what I wanted in a company. I wanted something that was a smart, easy to build website or iPhone app that did not make money off of ads, that created real value in the world, and something that I could be passionate about for the next 10 years. And so that was really difficult for me to find, but once I found something that fit that criteria, it was easy for me to work on. That's why I'm working on my current company. Future things that I think are very exciting for me. The world, for the longest time, didn't change much. The difference between like 50 BC and like 0 is like very little. The difference between like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, like all those years, very little difference. But in the past 300 years, 100 years ago, the first plane flew. 200 years ago, we had slavery. 300 years ago, there wasn't the United States. So the rate of change is so fast. And if you look at like 20 years ago, the internet was invented. And so the rate of change is really fast, but I think that actually in the past like 10 to 15 years, we haven't had too much of a difference. Like we're still using the same Google, YouTube, Facebook. Like iPhone was built like 10 years ago plus. So what's the things that are really going to change the world? Engineering humans, so CRISPR-9 and like genetic engineering is definitely one of them. Like that's totally changes everything. I'm really excited about advancements in neuroscience personally. If you look at the field, like people in that area that are doing research are publishing like 11 papers a year, where a normal researcher is like lucky if they publish one. So super fast moving. Artificial intelligence, definitely something that I don't yet have a solid opinion about, but I know is going to be revolutionary. Renewable energy, and biotechnology. And so, okay, these are the things that I'm personally excited about. There's other things. There's cryptocurrency, there's like space explorations, but these are the things that get me going. What am I doing to prepare myself for this future? Well, if you look at it, the thing that I find really exciting is there's a lot of specific, particular, practical innovations that are happening. One is by a company called Emerald Therapeutics, and they built what's called a cloud lab. It's an automated, like, robotic lab where you can program the experiments in Wolfram Alpha, and then it will run like chemical and biological experiments for you, instead of having like a researcher do it for you. Which means that in the past, I would have had to like sit there with a pipette, and if I wanted to validate a hypothesis, it would take me like 3 hours of work to do 3 tests. Now, I just have my hypothesis, build 100 different versions that are slightly tweaked, and then build 3 like exercises of each one of those, and then robots do it for me instantaneously, and in an hour I did 3,000 tests instead of doing 3. So that's really cool. In addition, deep learning and artificial intelligence is getting really cool. So what I want to do is study deep learning, get good enough at it where I could start like building basic models, get good enough at using cloud labs where I could start doing experiments myself, and then build an AI that just builds these experiments itself, and then tell the AI, okay, solve prostate cancer. Here's all the access to all the prostate cancer like research. Build these hypotheses, and then build like thousands of experiments until you find something that works. So I guide it in the right direction, and then it experiments. So that is one example of a way in which I look at a fusion technology, find it really cool, and then try to teach myself things that are relevant to it.
One more question.
Last 2 questions, yeah.
What do you think is the best way to have deep conversations in the age of social media?
Okay, so so different people will answer you different things. So like 2 nights ago, I had dinner with Naval Ravikant, who's like big into cryptocurrency, and so he's really popular on Twitter, and he loves Twitter, and so he'll have super deep conversations on Twitter. Twitter doesn't work for me because I have to highlight the sentence with Speechify and then have it read, and the time it takes me to highlight 140 characters and then read is like not actually worth it. So I don't use Twitter. I love personal interactions. So the most important thing I got out of Brown is random conversations I had with people in the ratty and at 3 in the morning in the dorm room. And so I don't do small talk. I always go to interesting conversations, and I have a couple of questions that prompt people to fall into those conversations with me. So one question like that is, you start talking to someone, hi Joe, nice to meet you, I'm blah, 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 nice food. Joe, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. What's your top 3 goals in life? You asked him, can I ask you a personal question? You gave him permission to ask you whatever you want. He's not going to get mad at you. You can even ask him, let's say he's amputated. Hey Joe, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. How did you lose your arm? Like, no one's going to get mad at you. You asked him permission, he said okay, he can always not answer if he wants. So what are your top 3 goals in life? Now, he needs to then tell you his goals in life, which will result in you knowing what he's interested in, so that conversation is really interesting. And if he doesn't know the answer, you get to have a conversation with him where you help him figure it out. You're like, what do you enjoy most? Like, what do you like to learn? Like, that's a great conversation to have. Other things that you can ask is, who are the 5 most exceptional people around, in your opinion? So now, A, you learn about people that you should meet. B, you left it up to him to define what the word exceptional meant. Like, you could have asked him that question and he tells you all about people who like sing a cappella and dance. Or he could tell you about really good like people in upper level CS, or he could tell you about people who are entrepreneurs. So you go deeper into that person. Another great question is, what's your biggest struggle in life right now? I stole this directly from Humans of New York, because that's the main question you ask people, and people will open up. It's amazing. So build a library of questions that you can ask people that help you fall into those conversations more quickly. You had a question.
So you probably have a grander vision for your life, right? How do you put that into manageable pieces that you can deal with right now in
Yeah.
that situation?
Yeah, so that's right. So if you look at the top 3 goals that I outlined before, I'm not getting anybody pregnant anytime soon, so I'm not working on the kid side. And I'm not getting married, so I can't really work on the partner side, although I would like to be in a significant relationship with somebody else. I do have a lot of friends, so I spend time cultivating those relationships with people who are really important to me. And I can't, and the thing that I can work on right now is creating value and improving myself. So I spend a lot of time improving myself, and I spend a lot of time creating value. The way that I look at it is, I first want to have enough resources where money does not like govern any of the decisions I'm making in my life. I don't care about how much money I have. Like, there's a certain amount that I know once I have it, I never need to think about money. And I'd like that to be the case. So I want to make something that solves that problem, but I'm like really picky. I want something that I also really care about. So Speechify falls into that category. So right now I focus only on Speechify. I'm not working on being a pop star right now, although I will be at some point. And I'm not working on being like the best parkour athlete in the world, although I will want to work towards that at some point. And so right now, I focus on this goal, I'm hitting this goal. At the same time, it's super important for me to be happy and learn. So I still listen to 100 books a year, I still have deep conversations, I still spend time playing music, etc. But I don't spend all my time writing songs. Once I accomplish what I want to accomplish here, then I'll be able to start to focus more on writing songs and doing parkour, and then I'll focus on bigger, grander visions. Again, and all of this is a learning process. So if I wanted to start SpaceX right now, I could, and I could start working towards it, but I don't think I'd be the most efficient person towards it. But by working on Speechify, this is like a pretty serious adversity quotient, right? You gotta raise money, recruit people, get users, etc. That's like a stepping stone towards the final boss, again, back to the video game analogy. So figure out what your goals are. Do that by reading a lot and experiencing a lot and talking to people and having good conversations and reflecting on your life. Break them down into manageable pieces and do them. Now, don't, figure out what the thing that you want the most is and do that now. I have a very good friend, Max Deutsch, who writes this blog, Month to Master, and he was working as a product manager at Intuit, and he was like, I love learning, I want to learn more. And so he said, here are 12 goals that I have, like beat the world champion in chess, learn a standing backflip, draw photorealistic portraits, like be a grandmaster in memory, like play a 5-minute blues guitar jam by myself, etc. Like have a 30-minute conversation in a foreign language about the future of technology. And then each month, he decided to work on those things, and he spent 25 to 30 minutes a day working on those things, and then another 20 minutes blogging about it. And he accomplished all but one of the goals. And he did it while having a full-time job for most of that time. But he did it by, again, being ruthless about how you allocate your time. If there's something that is not ideal, he didn't do it. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.